Hi, welcome to the Crochet Show. Great that you're watching this video. And today we're gonna tackle the basics of Tunisian crochet. It's a technique that is quite new to me and I'm looking forward to diving in all those basic stitches that you need for Tunisian crochet projects. And I did a little research and I totally love them already, so let's start. Tunisian crochet today. I am looking forward to it. I never really done it, Tunisian crochet, but I was inspired by my mom who found an old Tunisian crochet hook in her drawers. She did use it a long time ago, I think, but it was in her closet for years. So she said I could have it, and that made me think, well, maybe I should dive into this technique. Because I don't know a lot about it, and I started doing some research on it and the stitches that were used for it, and I'm starting to like it. I've started to like it. Tunisian crochet, it's like a technique that's in between crocheting and knitting. It has a knitting look when you do it, and you keep all your loops on the hook. So that's the knitting part, and the rest of it is just like crochet. And well, I'm very curious. I'm just pointing. I'm pointing all the time. You, I'm talking to you. I'm very curious if you have a lot of experience with Tunisian crochet. What's your favorite technique, your favorite stitch? Do you have tips for people who are just beginning with Tunisian crochet? And I'm also curious if you prefer Tunisian crochet to regular crochet. Please leave your comments because I want to be inspired. Well, it's time to dive into the basic stitches of Tunisian crochet. We're going to do 4 of them today. If you want to skip to one of the stitches, please check the chapters in this video so you can find all the 4 stitches marked in there. We'll start with the very first stitch. It's the basic stitch of all, the simple stitch. You start off with some chains, any number will do, and then you insert your hook in the second chain from the hook. Pull up a loop and leave that loop on your hook. Then continue to the next chain, pull up a loop, and so on until all the loops of that row are on your hook. Now it's time to finish off all these loops, and we do that by yarn over and then pull the thread through the first loop on your hook. That is the edge of your work. And after that, you yarn over and you pull your yarn through 2 loops at a time. And you repeat pulling it through 2 loops until the end of your row, and you have only 1 loop left on your hook. And for the next row, you don't have your chains to pull up a loop. So now you use the vertical stitches of the previous row, like those vertical lines, to insert your hook underneath and pull up your loop. And after that, it's the same as the previous row. And that is the simple stitch. Well, I just love the way this simple stitch looks. It's just nice little squares, and it's just only the beginner stitch of all. So that's promising. That's promising, right? We're gonna go to the next stitch, and that is the knit stitch. And I can tell you already, I love that stitch. That is such a cool effect. It's a very knitting effect. I think that's why it's called the knit stitch, probably. So let me show you how you do that. Again, you use these vertical lines of your stitches to pull up a loop, but this time you insert your hook between the front post and the back post of those vertical lines. So you don't keep your hook on the front of your work, but you push it to the back, and then you pull up your loop.
And you keep doing that until all the loops of that row are on your hook. And then it's the same as the simple stitch. Pull your yarn through 2 loops at a time and work your way back until you have only 1 loop left on your hook. The end results are these gorgeous little V's. And you can also use multiple colors for a very cool effect.
I think it's such a simple stitch, but the effect is so nice. It's so cute. Because it's the knit stitch, it made me think of my experience with knitting. That is very limited, my experience with knitting. I did some knitting when I was a kid. I never crocheted as a kid, funnily enough, but I did start knitting. I can remember I never finished a project. Never. The only thing I knit, and I still can remember that, were little squares. And I know I had this idea that one day it would be a blanket. But I did make quite a big bag of squares that I knitted, but I never did anything with it. I just knitted squares when I was a kid, and that was it. Years later, I threw out the bag because it was all uneven, and well, it was a bit of a sad moment because I knew how much work was in there. I never took up knitting again, but fortunately I found crocheting when I was a lot older. But now with this knit stitch, it's all kind of coming back to me. The next stitch I'm gonna show you is the purl stitch. It is a stitch that you have to get used to a little, but then it's very versatile.
The difference with the previous stitches is that you hold your yarn now at the front of your work instead of at the back. So your yarn is now not behind your hook as before, but your yarn is now in front of your hook when you insert it to pull up a loop. You insert your hook the same way as you did with the simple stitch. And when you have inserted your hook, you can move your yarn to the back to pull up the loop. Then for the next stitch, you move your yarn to the front again to insert, and you keep going like this. And the way back is the same again as the previous ones. Pull your yarn through 2 loops at a time.
As you can see, the purl stitch, it's like kind of getting something you have to get used to, like where your yarn is. I think it's the Tunisian stitch you have to think about the most, because you just are constantly moving the yarn around. When I started to learn how to crochet, I was pregnant with my oldest son, and I wanted to do crochet a baby blanket. I was already on pregnancy leave, so I had all the time in the world. I can't imagine that now. We have now 2 kids, so I never have time of the world again, but then I did. So I thought I'm gonna crochet a baby blanket, and I just got on the very first tutorial of a baby blanket crocheting I could find, and it turned out it was Tunisian crochet. And I didn't know squat of crocheting at the time. I didn't know the basic stitches at the time. I didn't know how to make a chain, how to make a single crochet. I didn't know anything. And I tried to keep up with the tutorial of that Tunisian baby blanket, and I just, well, it didn't work out. It was all tough, and well, you couldn't put a baby under there. I knew I really liked to crochet. I felt that. But I should have started with a whole different tutorial. And that's what was in my head when I thought about Tunisian crochet. It was that failed project of the beginning. And that is such a pity, because Tunisian crochet is a lovely technique. It's something you have to get used to a little, you have to practice it. But it's not that hard when you know the basics of crocheting. You can easily start with Tunisian crochet. So I'm really happy that I got this hook, and I just started playing around with it, because now I can push away that failed memory of Tunisian crochet and just replace it with this one. And that's better. Well, I showed you 3 of the basic stitches, and it's time to show you a very pretty stitch that combines the simple stitch and the purl stitch, and it's called the smock stitch.
You start with the simple stitch, followed by a purl stitch, so get your yarn to the front before you insert your hook. And you keep switching between these 2 stitches in this row, so simple stitch, purl stitch, simple stitch, purl stitch. The way back is the same as before. You pull your yarn through 2 loops at a time. And the next row you make a purl stitch on top of a simple stitch and a simple stitch on top of a purl stitch. So just the other way around as the previous row. And that is a smock stitch. Such a lovely result. I love it.
Those 4 stitches are the basics of Tunisian crochet. There are a lot more stitches that combine those techniques, little variations on it, and you can do pretty cool stuff with it. Let me show you some examples of things you can do with Tunisian crochet. This is the smock stitch I just showed you, and it's like a very cool pillow. It's with a bit of thicker yarn with a bigger crochet hook. You have crochet hooks with these flexible wires at the end, so you can do very big projects with all the loops on this wire. Scarves are also a very common Tunisian crochet project, and it's very neat. It's very chic, I think, a Tunisian scarf. This is also a very basic stitch, just one color, just one stitch, and look at that cool effect. I love it. This is the simple stitch combined with the smock stitch as a border. And look how simple it is. It's so elegant, and this is also just the basic stitches of crocheting, of Tunisian crocheting. You have all sizes of Tunisian hooks with wires at the end. You can do big projects. That's quite a challenge, I can imagine, to have that many loops on your hook, but it's all possible. So if you're interested and you're inspired by these examples, just dive into it, experience it, practice with it, and you're gonna love it. And if you have other techniques you would like to see me try out, please let me know, because I'm always in the mood for some new experience when it comes to crocheting. I'm just gonna continue with Tunisian crochet. I love it, I hope you do too, and I'll see you in the next crochet show. Bye bye!